Thank you, Sarah, and I would like to add my welcome to everybody in doing this. And one of the things that I want to remark on before we even get started is the artwork that you are looking at on the screen. I can't take credit for any of the great creative artwork that you're going to see in these slides. That is the work of Sarah, who just introduced me. But the thing I loved about it when Sarah put all this together was it really represents what I believe mentoring is. I believe mentoring is about development and growth. And when you think about mentoring and onboarding, when you bring individuals on, you want them to really be a part of your organization. You want them to really feel like they are going to grow and develop. And you know, you want to make sure that your organization is one of those gardens where the individuals that join can learn and grow. So to start us off, Sarah, will you take us through our first poll?
Sure, Judy. Our first poll is, do you include mentoring as part of your onboarding process? Is it yes, no, or we're considering it? So far, about 70% have voted. We'll give it a few more moments. All right, Judy, it looks like 38% are considering it, followed by about a tie between yes and no at 31%.
Okay, thank you. Well, you know, I think this is wonderful. Talk about great timing. For those of you that are, you know, do have mentoring as part of your onboarding process, congratulations to that 31%. And for those of you that don't have it, or the 38% that are considering it, we hope today is going to be very helpful to you as you go forward in doing this. So let's talk about the agenda that we're going to go through today. First of all, what we're going to do is we're going to go through some expectation and retention trends that we know that are based on research that's been done in 2016 and 2017. In addition to that, we're going to talk about some possible onboarding challenges that we know every organization has, and look at those, and then talk about how mentoring can support and help you with some of those onboarding challenges. Sometimes the reason that organizations don't include mentoring as part of their onboarding is they're not quite sure how to do that. So we're going to talk about that, because we're going to talk about how to design a mentoring program to support onboarding, and then we're actually going to take you through a case study in what you're going to be doing. You know, it's kind of interesting when you talk about, you know, new hires and onboarding, and there really is, we know, a risk of turnover, and you know, it's really an investment that people are trying to save. We want to keep people that come into our organization. One of the things we know, and this has been reinforced with research findings over and over again, is that the largest expense an organization has is when someone leaves the organization before the end of their first year. Now, I want you to just think about all the costs that are involved in getting that individual up and running and going, as well as what it could cost to replace them. You know, think in terms of the hours and dollars that are spent on the recruitment and interviewing process, and then the time and dollars spent getting that new person up to speed. Or if they don't stay, think of the time and dollars that someone has to put in to do that empty job plus their own. Think about the training you give the new person, whether it's a training class or you're taking someone's time to work with that individual to get them up to speed. And the list goes on and on. So that's why you want to be able to invest in onboarding, and that's why we want them to come back, and to not just come back, but to stay in what they're doing. There's a very strong business case for having mentoring to support your onboarding process. First of all, we know it builds teams. We know that it helps people to, get along better, to feel more engaged in a team. In addition to that, we also know that it reduces time to productivity. We have several organizations that actually have used mentoring as part of their onboarding so that people get up to speed faster. Really reduces that learning curve in what you're doing. It also increases engagement. Studies have been shown that mentoring with onboarding increases engagement because people feel much more connected to the organization itself. And it helps you to attract and retain top talent. Just a couple of weeks ago, I was with an organization, and someone that was in the meeting made the comment that just a couple of days before they'd gotten off the phone with an individual that they really wanted to come and work with the organization, and got surprised because that individual asked them. They said, "Do you have a mentoring program?" Now, this person happens to be a part of an organization that's one of our clients and was glad to say yes. But more and more we're finding that people are asking that question. So to be able to attract and retain that top talent, you want to make sure you've got that. And then it builds trust and alignment. Again, the individual feels much more a part of the organization as they go forward. So at this point in time, Sarah, will you take us through our next poll?
Sure, Judy. Our next poll is, if you have let me launch it real quick. There we go. If you have an onboarding process, what is the top reason you need to improve it? Is it to attract and retain top talent, to build trust and alignment, to increase engagement, to reduce time to productivity, or we do not have a formal onboarding process? So we'll give you a few moments to vote. All right, Judy. I'm going to go ahead and close the voting. 35% voted for increased engagement, followed by 24% for attract and retain top talent.
Aha. And I would say that makes sense in doing that. Again, that, engagement, that's something that for the last couple of years has been top of mind for all organizations to increase engagement. And especially with your new hires, if you can start them off right then, hey, you've really got it. Okay, so also those of you that 24% attract and retain, well, we want you to attract and retain it and also increase your engagement. So it all kind of works together. Okay, so let's talk about those new hires that are going to come into your organization in 2017. Now, one of the things that I want to be clear about as we go through the process today is we're not just talking about your new college grads. We're not talking about your millennials. We're talking about anybody that comes new into your organization. It could be somebody that is just coming from out of college and university in doing this, or maybe an intern that worked with you and now you're hiring them full time. But we're also talking about that individual that maybe has got 15, 20 years experience and is coming to work for your organization. You hired them because of that experience, and you want to make sure that they stay with you as they go forward. So let's talk about those. Now, there are certain expectations that are available, and too many new hires are left on their own to kind of flounder in what they're doing. What we do know is new hires expect a plan for growth and development. And again, this has nothing to do with age groups or whatever. This is something that new hires are expecting out of organizations today. And they're expecting to have the tools and the resources to do their jobs right and someone to show them the road. Many times what happens is that new hires feel absolutely overwhelmed by the amounts of information that they get from the organization about their role, meeting new colleagues, all those types of things. Remember back yourself. What did it feel like when you first joined your organization? There was information coming at you from all angles. And, you know, it really can be overwhelming. And trying to remember it all, that it's kind of like a data dump, and then trying to remember it, you know, we find that there really are some problems with that. You know, also many times that, you know, they don't get a clear articulation or even a reinforcement of the organization's values and what they're doing. Sometimes there's delays in offering onboarding, or in some cases not at all in doing that, or it's cut short. They don't have enough time to really feel like they've been onboarded in what they're doing. So these are, you know, kind of all things that can happen in going forward and doing that. You know, one of the things we know from research and retention trends, 86% of new hires make their decision to leave or stay within the first 6 months. Now, previously, I just talked about the expense if somebody leaves before the end of the first year. Can you imagine what this is like? 89% of new hires say they do not have the optimum level of knowledge and tools to do their job. That's pretty scary. And this one's even more so. 1/2 of all hourly workers leave their new jobs within the first 120 days. Now, the reason this becomes really, really important is you may say that you probably spend a whole lot of time and money on very top tiers of what you're doing. And, you know, when you look at that, new employees who attend an onboarding program are 69% more likely to stay. So when you're spending all that money on your top levels of the organization, you're figuring, okay, you know, we're looking at $200,000, $250,000. I want you to stop and think about something. If you have got hourly workers or you've got lower level workers and you had 10 of those leave at one time at $25,000 or 10 leave over a period of a year, aren't those important also? Because you're going to lose that same amount of $250,000. So, you know, one of the things that we really want to caution you on is when it comes to retention, it comes to mentoring, it comes to having a good onboarding program, don't just think about those high potentials or those all high levels of the organization. You need to think about all levels of the organization in doing that. I have to tell you that I do have a personal prejudice, and that is with this term high potentials. Many times it's only focused on those high levels, senior levels in the organization. But I believe you've got potential at every level of the organization. And if you don't pay attention to all those levels, you know, you can cost you a tremendous amount of money also. And think about that. Think about why you want to retain all of your employees, maybe not just those you think that are at the high level in doing that. We know mentoring can increase the retention of new hires even more. It's that added piece that is to your onboarding program because, again, it makes the new hire feel engaged from the minute they walk in the door. They feel a part of the organization. So at this point in time, Sarah, will you take us through our next poll?
Sure, Judy. Our next poll is, again, if you have an onboarding process, what's the top reason you'll need to improve it? To attract and retain top talent, build trust and alignment, increase engagement, reduce time to productivity, or we do not currently have a formal onboarding process. All right. Most have voted. Again, our votes have come in at 38% with increased engagement, followed by 23% attract and retain top talent.
Okay, so pretty much the same as what we looked at before, but we were hoping that you kind of maybe take a little different view of what you were doing in this. But, you know, still attract and retaining top talent and then increasing the engagement once you get them in the door. in doing that. So great, thank you very much. So we want to start talking about some of the advantages for this new hire. You know, what are they going to get out of this? You know, first of all, you start them off on the right foot, and you successfully integrate them in what you're doing. It also helps to increase the employee's self-confidence, because many times a new hire, this individual that's playing that mentee role, might be too nervous about asking their direct manager a question, because there might be a feeling that, well, it's silly, or my manager feels like I should know that, or I'm bothering them, or whatever it might be. But when you've got a mentor that you can talk to, it's kind of like having a safe haven, somebody that you can talk to and have confidence that, you know, they're going to keep your confidence in doing that. And then identify and get a mentor on some of those missing skills and impart knowledge and expertise. And then enhance your professional development. You know, looking at those last two bullet points, one of the things that I've always felt is so absolutely wonderful about mentoring is the fact that when I go into an organization, I may have certain skills that I used previously. I may have new skills I need to learn. But let's think about some of those skills that I used before. You know, when I used them in my previous organization, it could be very different as to how those are valued in the new organization. And having a mentor to help me not only in the skills, but how those skills are used within the organization's culture can be absolutely valuable. What it does is it really helps me as a new hire not to make some faux pas that unfortunately we've all experienced at one point in time. But it really makes me feel more confident. It makes me feel like I'm not going to stub my toe, or I'm not going to make too many mistakes like I might have done in another organization by using the same skills. And you know, there's not only advantages for the new hire, but there's also advantages for the mentor when it comes to onboarding. First of all, it helps the mentor even to continually build their own professional network, because as new people come in, that's a new network individual that they can work with. So, you know, it's good for the mentor. And in addition to that, the mentor receives fresh ideas. One of the things that we think is a great advantage to mentoring is the fact that somebody does something and they do it well, but they do it the same way over and over again. You know, we're all busy in our jobs. We've got our kind of blinders on as we go forward. And sometimes we don't think about other ways to do certain things. But when the mentee or the new hire comes in, they can kind of add to that. So as a mentor, first of all, I get somebody to look at what we're doing now and kind of, you know, evaluating it. But I might get some new ideas on the way to be able to implement or, you know, handle a problem or an issue, whatever it is. I've got a new perspective as a mentor. And then, you know, I can get positive recognition and reinforcement from that new hire. There's kind of a great intrinsic value to feeling like, you know, I've helped somebody. I've helped them get started in the organization. I've helped them really work through the organization and going forward. So again, it's that intrinsic kind of value. And for your organization, mentoring can enhance the organization's culture. So not only does it help the individual integrate into the organization's culture, but one of the things it does is it really goes through and makes the organization a better place to live and a better place to work. And when I use the word live, I talk about the fact that we spend so many hours every day in our organization that it takes up the biggest portion of our day and our week many times. So you want to make sure that you are working within a culture in an organization that's really going to benefit you and you feel good in. And one that has a mentoring program can really see that benefit. Also cultivates employee loyalty. I've talked about this over and over again already about the engagement factor in doing that. You know, what it also does is if we can keep people inside the organization by, you know, supporting the onboarding program through mentoring, we're able to protect our investment in that individual and in the recruiting process. And we all know how many dollars it takes to interview and recruit. So again, I want to protect that investment. And then getting people up to speed faster, decreasing that learning curve. It improves the new hire time to productivity as they go forward. So, you know, we've all had experience on some of the challenges that everybody faces with a onboarding process. So we want to, you know, talk about some of those. But before we talk about them, Sarah, can you take us through our next poll?
Sure, Judy. Our next poll is, what challenge do you foresee launching a mentoring program for onboarding? Do you foresee delays in offering onboarding, overloading new hires, no accountability or metrics, not enough resources to go beyond basic HR onboarding tasks, or that the time frame is too short? I'll give it a few more moments. So far, Judy, though, it's overwhelmingly not enough resources right now, with over 50%. Okay, we're going to go ahead and close. Judy, as I said, 53% have not enough resources to go beyond basic HR onboarding tasks, followed by 22% for no accountability or metrics.
Okay. I can't say that surprises me. I mean, we've all experienced in the last, 3 to 4 years with downsizing and reorg that everybody's doing more with less. So not having enough resources to go beyond basic HR onboarding tasks is definitely an issue. And so we're going to talk about all of these and how mentoring can actually help you in being able to do this. All of these that we talked about. Okay, so this is how mentoring can overcome these challenges. First one there, overloading new hires. And we all know that. We've all experienced that as they go forward. A mentor can support the information overload on an ongoing basis. What the mentor is able to do, again, when I'm new to the organization, I get this data download and it's data dump. And I'm not going to remember it all. But yet I don't want to keep calling somebody to ask them about something. Or, you want to make sure you don't make a mistake by doing something wrong that you should have learned when you were on board. And so the mentor can help. They can, answer questions. They can actually, understand what it was that the individual learned during the onboarding process and be able to reinforce that and keep it going in doing that. And then, one of the things that is good about that is if you've got a delay in offering onboarding. In other words, because you're waiting for a large group to come in all at one time, sometimes you have a delay. But if you've got a mentor, they can start right away. I mean, you don't have to wait for a whole group to get together before you do onboarding. We've heard from some organizations that they don't do their onboarding until they get a whole group of people together. And, guess what? That could be too late. But in a mentoring situation, the mentor can jump in right away in whatever they're doing. Too short of a time frame. Many times what happens is the time frame is, hello, how are you? Here's filling out your W-4, and here's the desk. Now, sometimes it's not always that bad, but it could be pretty short, and it's too short of a time frame for individuals to be able to get everything that they need in the onboarding process. A mentoring relationship is typically 6 to 12 months. Now, when it comes to onboarding, that might be 3 months, it might be 6 months, it might be 8 months, whatever it is, whatever really is needed to be able to do that. But the point is, there's somebody there. It's not like the overload and then the new hire is suddenly out on their own. They've got help, and they've got that help for as long as they need it, whether it's 3 months, 6 months, or whatever it is. But there's someone there. aha, here's this one, not enough resources to go beyond basic overloading tasks. Your qualified mentors are an additional resource to help your human resource and your new hires. So the point is, if you haven't got enough resources, in your basic HR, OD, L&D functions, mentors can help supplement that. That's one of the biggest things that we want to bring forward. Qualified, now that's one of the most important things we want to talk about, which is qualified mentors actually can offer additional resources and help. So think about that, especially for those of you that voted that was one of your biggest challenges. And then no metrics or accountability. We believe that mentoring is a business strategy. It's not just a warm, fuzzy, feel-good program. It's a business strategy. And we also believe that mentoring should be measured both qualitatively, how people feel about the program, and quantitatively, looking at an ROI on doing this. So we talked about all these challenges, and now you can see how mentoring can really help support and be a part of that. So now we're going to talk about how to build that mentoring program. First, you got to figure out who's going to do it. Define what the role is, HR is going to be in the onboarding, what they will do and what they're not going to do. Then define the role of the mentor in doing that, and qualify, and I can't stress this enough, qualify your mentors and make sure they're volunteers. Make sure that it's somebody that really wants to do this in taking this forward. And then train your mentors for their items to ensure consistent communication. And I want you to think about this. You wouldn't put anybody into a job or a role that, first of all, you didn't define the role so that they knew what is expected of them. You wouldn't ask anyone to take on that role that wasn't qualified or didn't have the skills, and you wouldn't miss training them. You'd make sure that you trained. So think about that in terms of your mentors. Make sure they understand what the job is. Make sure they've got the skills to actually be a mentor, those interpersonal skills, those relationship building skills, those communication skills, those types of things to actually be a good mentor, and then give them some training in what they're doing. So, when you think about building that onboarding program, first thing you're going to want to do is to define your goals and objectives, and then you want to identify the mentors and their respective roles, match them based on specific criteria that is based on your goals and objectives, determine when to introduce the mentor to the mentee or in the onboarding process, provide online information and examples. Make sure the information that the new hire and the mentor need to get to is very easy to access, and then measure what you've achieved in doing that. So let's take each of these separately. You want to make sure that you define your goals and objectives. Don't start your program out unless you have clearly defined your goals and objectives. So examples might be that you want to provide new employee guidance in what you're doing, increase retention of new hires in doing that, or increase the time to productivity and accelerate that learning curve in what you're doing. So again, make sure that you start out by having good goals and objectives for your program. And then identify the mentors and their respective roles and what they're going to be doing. Make sure that the mentors understand how to determine the mentee needs and set goals and put together a plan with the mentee. And then, make sure that you provide opportunities as a mentor to interact with different areas of the organization. The role of the mentor in any mentoring partnership is to guide in doing that, to assist the mentee in becoming associated with individuals throughout the organization. Make sure the mentors are able to give feedback to the new hire, how they're doing, continually evaluate how they're working out in the progress, and, think about what are the motivation factors of the mentee. Recognize their success and help the mentee to avoid making mistakes. And then communicating. Make sure that mentors understand how they're going to communicate with the mentee, how they will communicate with other areas of the organization, and so on as they go forward. Now, the next thing we want to talk about is matching participants on a regular basis and being able to do that. You've set your goals and objectives, and then your criteria for matching needs to be a part of and relate back to those original goals and objectives that were set. So as an example, if your original goal was around, making sure that you've got, a good retention of your new hires, you might want to actually have a couple of mentors. Now, one of your mentors might be an organizational and cultural mentor, and their criteria might be around the number of years in the organization, the business function they're in, or the location. So that might be some matching criteria that's important to match individuals with mentors and new hires based on that type of mentoring, making sure you've got somebody that can help them into a new hire along. Now, if, though, your focus of what you want to do to match people is around job skill development, some of the criteria you want to think about has to do with the career level, might have to, again, to do with business function and specific skills and competencies that are needed in that particular job role, and then possibly could be location. Now, one of the things I can tell you is doing this matching and pairing is much easier if you have a technology tool to help you do that. It greatly reduces the administrative burden, and it also increases the compatibility because you're doing it on specific criteria. If you've got some type of technology tool, possibly, a mentee can choose their own mentor, or a mentor can choose their own mentee, whatever it might be. But again, making sure from that matching and pairing process that you've got a technology tool to help. I have to tell you that we hear horror stories all the time from individuals talking about how they tried to do this by spreadsheets, and it really is hard to even think about doing it that way and taking it forward. And then determine when you're going to introduce the mentor to that new hire. Now, if it's the focus of what you're wanting to do is around, getting them involved in the organization and teaching them about the organization, you might want to bring them in right away at the very beginning of the process. Make sure you provide a warm, positive experience for them. Several organizations we work with on their onboarding actually have kind of a luncheon that they've set up, and the new hires get to meet other new hires. It becomes like an alumni situation. And then they also get to spend time with their mentor and get to know them. Provide support from the very beginning in doing that. And make sure they understand that this isn't tied to formal training. And they can start that partnership right away. It's not like they have to wait on anything. But now if you're in a situation that the individual is and the partnership is around job skill development, you might want to introduce it after formal training has begun and after they started the job, because it reinforces learning. And we have organizations that have required training before someone begins a job. So what they do is individuals go through a week or two of training. Then what they do is they are introduced to their mentor, and the mentor helps them to understand the practical application of exactly what it is that they've learned. And then they might go back and get some more training in doing that. And when that happens, then the mentor helps them with the practical application of that also. And, the great thing is it provides guidance and support when they're on the job. So again, the new hire doesn't feel embarrassed to ask a question because they can always go back to their mentor. So they don't feel like that they are going to ask a silly question of a manager who feels like, this is something you should already know. And then provide access. And why? First of all, there needs to be clarity for the role of the the mentee as well as the mentor. Help everybody learn about the mentor that they're in. If you have a good technology tool, one of the things that you're able to do is the new hire can go in, understand what their role is, and they can learn about their mentor as it goes. Also, any information about their mentoring experience or what they can expect or what's going to be upcoming is much easier to find so that they know what's coming ahead of time. So again, your technology tool can really help them. And just make that information easy to access in what they're doing. And then measurement. We're back to that measurement again. And we believe, again, you should be able to measure your mentoring because we believe it's a business strategy. So one of the ways you might do that is a feedback survey that is taken by the individuals. It's kind of like, how did they feel about the program? How did they feel about their matching and pairing? You might also get feedback from managers. How did they feel the mentee developed in going forward? And then if they actually have put a learning plan together, which again we believe they should, then you can actually do and calculate what did they learn based on the goals that they set originally in being done, and how quickly did they get those goals accomplished and what they were doing. So it's kind of a review. Make sure you define goals and objectives. It's why it's at the top. It's what you've got to do first. Identify the mentors, qualify them, and their respective roles. Match based on your criteria. That goes back to the objectives and goals of the program. Determine when to introduce the mentor. If it's cultural mentoring, you want to do it probably, right away. If it's more around job, kind of figure out, are they going to have to go through training? Do they need to be on the job for a little bit of time? It could be 2 days, it could be 3 weeks, whatever it is. Is that the time to add the mentor in? Make sure there's easy access to information in doing that, and examples so that the mentee, new hire, and the mentor understand what's going to be happening, and then make sure that you measure as you go forward. So now we want to take you through an actual case study. And in this case study, it was typical. It was information overload in what was happening, and we've seen that. The new hires were receiving too much information at once, and again, we've all experienced that. The company needed to share accurate and crucial information with the new hires without overwhelming them in what they were doing. So there was information that had to go out, but the company is saying, how can we do that without overloading them and overwhelming them in what they're doing? So here's what we did with them, and this was the solution. First of all those mentors were qualified. There's that qualified mentors again we keep talking about. Mentors were qualified to make sure they provided the best first impression of the organization in doing that. Very, very important. Qualification criteria was set up. So making sure that the mentors had specific, consistent, correct information to impart to the new hire. And in many cases, this takes place. And in this particular case study, it did take place. There were 2 mentors for each new hire. One was that organizational and culture, to get somebody in the door, they really understand the organization, the history around it, all of those types of things, and then also a mentor for job-specific focus. Now, there are times that you can have one mentor that can do both of these, but in most cases, you need 2 mentors to do it. And then the purpose of the partnership, which was information sharing, was clearly communicated to new hires ahead of time, and really letting them know that you're going to get a mentor and you need to ask questions. You need to make sure that you've got clear perceptions and clear understanding of what's expected. Now, the results, there was a decrease in complaints from the managers. People were up and running faster than they had been, plus the fact the managers were getting less questions from the new hires. There was a reduction in dollars spent on new hires, and taking that forward. Also, HR, there was a reduction in follow-up calls or emails or even visits to their offices in doing that. So not only did the managers feel like people had more information and he was getting less complaints and less questions, but so was HR in doing this. There was a reduction in new hire frustration. that came through surveys, and there was an increase in new hire satisfaction with the onboarding program that took place. So at this point in time, Sarah, will you take us through our last poll?
Sure, Judy. Our final poll is, what are you going to do now? Are you going to talk to your management about including mentoring? Definitely adding in mentoring. You're going to reach out to a mentoring expert, or you probably cannot do anything right away, or you'll think about it for the next year. Voting is slowing, so I'm going to go ahead and close. Judy, 40% said they're going to talk to their management about including mentoring, followed by 30% said we'll think about it for next year.
Okay. Okay, for those of you that are looking about talking to your management about including mentoring, we also want you to feel like you can reach out to the mentoring experts here at Insala to help you with that as you go forward. So thank you very much. Okay, some final thoughts that we want you to think about. Onboarding has to focus on the culture of the organization as well as on the job. And many times organizations only concentrate on helping somebody in the job, but it really needs to help them acclimate and integrate with the organization's culture as well as the job. The secret to successful onboarding is structure. Make sure that you have a program in place. Make sure there's ways to provide training to the mentors in doing this. Make sure there are goals and objectives set. Make sure all of those things that we talked about as far as when to introduce the mentor, having the matching criteria, all of those things that you provide a structure to your program. That also provides reinforcement in being able to do that. And you know, the personal touch. Having a mentor is that human personal touch, and we all know it's always most effective. And especially for those of you that are looking at not having, enough HR, it's hard to be able to get that personal touch to everybody doing that. And then last, remember that what you do now and how you do it makes a difference 1, 3, and 10 years down the line. So you're going to get immediate results as well as long-term results. At Insala, we can assist you in launching your program. We can help you do it, or we can do it for you. We follow a process called Plan, Implement, Evaluate, and Manage. We have a workshop called MORE, which stands for Mentoring Organizational Readiness and Effectiveness. And that's helped you to plan and put your program together that you can ensure is going to be a success. And then we can help you with marketing programs, training, how to launch your program, and facilitating. It's very important to market your program. Just because you build it doesn't mean they will come. It's very important to market and brand. We talked about how important it is to train the individuals that will be participating in your program. And then make sure that you are able to evaluate it. Make sure that you're able to measure it. Benchmark data we can provide to you. We can provide you by doing a gap analysis or a 360 analysis to help you evaluate how successful your program is. And then one of the things that we can help you with to manage your program is strategic account management. We are continually keeping updated on the new things that are happening with mentoring. Help you create those goals that you want for your program as you go forward, and technology to help you manage all of that data. So at this point in time, Sarah, can you take us through the questions that have come up?
Sure, Judy. The first question is, why do you feel technology is important for a mentoring program?
Part of that is experience. I've been doing this for over 30 years, and I can tell you that probably the first 15 years in doing this, you watch people use spreadsheets. You watch people try and keep track of everything, without any type of technology tool to help them. And what happens is your program becomes an administrative nightmare in what you're doing. It's just so important to have a technology tool to be able to help with the matching and pairing. I mean, that can be an administrative nightmare right there. To help pull reports when somebody asks you a question, if something's happening, and instead of having to put, if somebody said, instead of having to put 4 spreadsheets together, I now can punch a button and I can get the report I need. It becomes a big difference. Also, being able to provide a portal so that individuals have information as they need it. I just, as I said, I can remember the days when we didn't have technology for mentoring, but it makes all the difference in the world in the stress that's taken off the program administrator, as well as your program just running much more smoothly. And you're able to evaluate your program faster. So you can, on a regular basis, evaluate it. So if there's problems, guess what? You can correct them right away. Great question.
Thanks for that, Judy. Our next question is, how do we present this as a necessary strategy to leadership?
Well, there's a couple of ways you want to do that. First of all, as I mentioned before, we consider mentoring in its form as a business strategy. And it's very important to position it as a business strategy. The other thing is go back and look at what it's costing you to bring new hires in. What's your turnover rate? I mean, begin to show. We talked about, again, all of those items, recruitment, interviewing, training, time on the job to get up to speed, all of those things that it costs the organization if somebody leaves the organization before the end of the first year. And some of the statistics, which we will be sending out to you, that talk about things like, 86% of new hires make their decision to leave or stay with an organization in 6 months. Half of all hourly employees leave their jobs in the first. I mean, these are dollars. These are dollars and cents. So presenting that type of data to your senior management that puts a financial return on investment to, having mentoring as part of your onboarding program and retaining and integrating your new hires faster and bringing them up to speed as a productive employee. It's very, very important. So business strategy, measurement, and what you know from research.
Judy, the next question is, we use the term buddying. How does this fit in with mentoring?
That's actually very, very common. It's, going through and saying, okay, we're going to give you a buddy as soon as you walk in the door. And, it again, great way to do it. This is usually somebody that is not maybe quite as skilled as what you might look for in a more sophisticated mentor. But, buddies are great. It helps somebody to understand, where do I go? What do I do? Especially in large organizations. If I've got this problem, where do I go? I think it's a great, great program. You probably want to add to that then, information about the job or whatever. But having a buddy to start is really great, and calling them a buddy, depending on the age of the new hire, might make them feel real comfortable by using just that terminology. That buddy is actually in the role of mentor. But like I said, there's something about the phrase on a buddy system. I remember working with one organization, and it was in a very, very large city in doing that, and just having a buddy to help them maneuver in the city, especially having a buddy that was close to their age in what they were doing, because most of these were new hires straight out of the university or internships, was very effective. So, hey, I think buddying is good.
Thanks for that, Judy. Our next question is, how would I measure the success of the mentoring program for onboarding?
There's a couple of ways you want to do that. And like I said, we believe that measurement should be qualitative and quantitative in doing that. So qualitative is very much around, okay, how did somebody feel about the program? Did they like the program? Did it help them feel more comfortable when they joined the organization? You know, it's those kinds of things. The other thing that you might want to do is look at your exit interviews. What are some of the reasons that people are leaving the organization, and what of those could an onboarding program help? And kind of get a listing of what those are, and make that part of your survey so that you can begin to find out, you know, if the onboarding, adding mentoring to the onboarding program is helping. Also, check your employee surveys. I mean, every organization has an employee survey, and one of the things that many times can come up is people aren't feeling like they're valued. They aren't feeling like they are, you know, a part of the organization in the beginning, is what they were. They felt overwhelmed with the new information. All those kind of things that are going on in employee surveys. One of the things that we have found that's effective is running the employee survey and making sure you cut your data by how long the individual's been with the organization. And you can find out some pretty good pieces of information from those individuals that have been with the organization less than a year in doing that. So I would say your qualitative data, you're looking at it from the standpoint of how people felt about the program. Did it help them in what they were doing? I would also say your employee surveys, or look at your exit interviews, see what your improvement percentages are in being able to do that. And I would say probably one of the best things is to talk with your managers to find out if they have seen a difference in how fast someone can get up to speed, accelerating that learning curve. So there's several different ways in which you can measure the effectiveness of your program.
Thanks for that, Judy. Looks like we have time for one more question. How do I assign a new hire a mentor on their first day when I don't know their needs yet?
Yeah, that's a very typical question. So I don't even know what they need yet. Chances are with that's the individual that is going to get that organizational and cultural mentor. I mean, you know, that individual or the buddy, as you were saying, to help them just maneuver through the organization and doing that. One of the things that can happen is during that particular time, there could be a series of questions that that mentor will ask them, and kind of finding out if the individual's feeling comfortable in their new role. In other words, they've come in to do XYZ job, but do they feel like they've got any areas they'd like to have, you know, some reinforcement on? And then you might want to put them in the job. And I can't say exactly how long you want to put them in the job before you put them with a mentor that focuses on the job, and then take them through some kind of an assessment possibly at that point, and find out, you know, where they're feeling comfortable, where they're feeling uncomfortable, where they'd like to have some additional help on the job. Like I said, I can't say exactly how long. It could be a week, it could be 3 weeks. It depends on the role. And again, some organizations have mandatory training that people have to go through before they start a job, so you've got some information right there. Because normally somebody will say, hey, I understood this part of my training, but I'm having problems with this part. The ideal way to be able to do that is if you can run a pre and post assessment. And, you know, we have organizations that do that. They actually run an assessment based on the job that the individual new hires coming into. They run an assessment to find out what the skill set is and where the individual is based on that job, and that gives them very clear data as to where they may want to start the individual. Good question.
Thanks for that, Judy. Well, it looks like we're about out of time. Judy, do you have any final thoughts?
No, I just really want to stress the advantage of mentoring to onboarding. And again, especially for those of you that say, we haven't got enough resources to do all this. Think about how your mentors can really be that additional resource for you and really be able to help you. And I'm going to go back and say the qualified mentors can really help you in doing that. So, you know, give yourself a break in HR and bring on some additional resources to help you do that. And if there's any other questions or any other way we can help you, be sure, send us an email or give us a call in doing that. But I would like to thank everybody for attending today, and hopefully this has been very helpful for you.
Thank you, Judy, and great job. Thank you to everyone who's for attending today's webinar. If you'd like a copy of today's slideshow or a recording of the webinar, you can find links to both on our Mentoring Thought Leaders group page on LinkedIn later today. If we were not able to get to your questions, or if you think of any additional questions you'd like to ask, comments, or feedback, please feel free to email us at info.ensala.com, or you can contact Judy directly through jcorner@ensala.com. We truly value your feedback on our webinars. Thanks again for coming, and have a wonderful day.